So I'm going to show you a sample of how to do InDesign layout. I do have a tutorial. If you look at your Important Cases Research assignment sheet, I do have a tutorial here that explains kind of what I'm going through, but with InDesign, especially if you've not used it before, it's much easier to see it being done. If at any point you're using InDesign and you can think about what you want to do but you can't figure it out, definitely try to Google. There's so many video tutorials out there that you should be able to find something to help you. So the first steps are pretty easy. Open InDesign, create a new document. I've already opened InDesign. You can see some of the past publications that we've made. These are the school newspaper. These are the last 2 literary magazines. This was a senior project that was done for Outreach. I'm just going to click on New. I can either click on New here or File, New. I want a new document. I am on my old laptop. This is before they gave us our new devices, so it's a little slow. I want to create a letter size document, but I want to work instead of, I just want to work in inches, basically, because I can think better in inches. You don't have to change that. It's the same size, but now I can see it's definitely 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to hit Create. Yes, I want to do my layout with 4 or more columns. Now, these columns are invisible. When you go to output this to PDF, columns become invisible. They're more just guidelines. So this is what 4 columns look like. I'm going to make mine 6. And what this allows you to do is just to line things up. When you line up text, it should go column to column. So it could be 1 column of text, 2, 3 columns of text. The more columns you have, the more flexible you are. Generally, a picture should go column to column. So now I could put a picture of maybe this size. I could put a picture this size, this size, this size. Let's go back to the tutorial. Save your work frequently. This is true because I tried to make a tutorial just a few minutes ago and it started acting up. So I'm going to save. I'm going to call it Sample Poster 2. You want to make sure you're saving this somewhere where you can access it. Make sure it's not default saved somewhere weird that you won't be able to find. Alright, first thing it says, place your pictures. So, what I have done is I've done a search. My sample is the Tinker case, and so I went to this website and I found this picture that I want to use. I want to make sure I keep the website up because I need to cite that URL to show credit for where I got the picture. Now I've already gone and saved the picture. If you don't have it saved, you want to save it first. So you don't go to copy image, you go to save as. Save it to somewhere where you can access. I've already done that, so I'm going to go to File, Place, Navigate to, this is the picture Mary and John, and I can do a preview to see that, yeah, that's the picture I want. I'm going to hit Open. There are several ways I can place the picture. First thing I can do is just place my cursor there and click, just a regular left click. What that does is it puts the picture in whatever the default picture size is. If I hit undo, which is Control Z, it reloads the cursor. Say I want this picture to be tiny. I'm going to click and hold and drag just to the end of that column. And now I have a tiny picture. It's a little too tiny. Let me hit Control Z, undo. What if I want the picture to span the whole 6 columns? I click, hold, and drag, and then it proportionally fills that box. Now, if you were going to send this to the printer, this white space outside the margins is generally not printable. Yes, the printer can print it, but anything in there, the printer is going to tell you could be cut off. So nothing important should fill that space. If I wanted to drag this picture into that space, there's nothing important here. But here her hand's going to cut off possibly by the printer. If that's okay, leave it there. If not, maybe you want to have a border on the page. It depends stylistically what you'd like. Personally, I don't want the picture to be at the top anyways. I think I want it to be down at the bottom. Now, as you're doing this project, it might help you to sketch out your poster before you go into InDesign. It helps to have an idea of what you want to do, and I do have an idea for what I want to do. My idea also involves taking a picture all the way over. So if you notice, I have the black arrow tool selected. The picture is blue outlined. This blue line is a crop box. If I wanted to crop half his face off for whatever reason, I could do that. What I want to do is drag the bounding box so that it goes all the way to the edge of the picture. But now I want the picture to fill that. So if I double click, again I have this black arrow tool selected, I'm going to double click on the picture, and now the bounding box turns into an orange one. This is now going to allow me to manually adjust the size of the picture. If all I do is drag, do you see how I'm stretching them out? They're looking a little too wide. Let me hit undo, Control Z, Control Z. If I drag this way, it stretches them out and they're a little too skinny. So Control Z. What I want to do is place the cursor here at the bottom corner so it turns into arrows. And I want to hold down the Shift key. While holding Shift, I'm going to drag. And what this does is it makes the picture proportionally increase. Now, the top of his head is cut off because if I double click, that blue bounding box is just a little too tight. I can also, let's say I need the picture to end there, I can double click so the orange box is highlighted. I'm going to use the down arrow just to shift him down just a little bit. I don't really need his belt or the bottom of his hand, but I'd like his head not to be cut off. So I'm just going to shift this picture so all the white space goes all the way to the edge. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with where that picture is. The next thing I want to do is add the title of my case. So this is in your packet. There's two ways to place text. I'm going to show you the second way because this is probably what you're going to be using for this project. So if I scroll down, this is my sample research page. InDesign does not have a built-in spell check. So you want to make sure anything you type in Word. So I've copied the text. Now I want to click on this T tool. This is a text box tool. And I can create a text box any size I want. Let me just create it this size. And I'll go ahead and paste. Right click, paste. This is the name of my case. This is going to be the title of my poster, so I want it to be big. So with this text tool, the T highlighted, I'm just going to select this, and it behaves much like Microsoft Word. I'm going to make the size, let's try 48. Let's see how that works. Now notice this is just very small. I want to drag it so that it spans the entire poster. I like it overall, except I don't like this hyphen. A couple things I can do. I think I want 2 lines for my poster, so I need this somehow to fit onto 1 line. I'm going to highlight this. Here we have the amount of space between letters. We can scrunch it together so it fits. It looks a little crunched up to me. I also think I want this to be bold. But this font, Minion Pro, doesn't have a bold. It just has a regular. I'm going to pick Times New Roman, just because I know it has a bold. Some fonts have bold, italic, etc. Some don't. So I'm going to make this bold. Because it's bold, it went over a little bit. I'm going to shrink it just slightly. That's a much bolder text. Now see how this one, district, doesn't quite go to the edge. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit. So now it's even. I'm not sure I'm totally happy with how this top part looks, but I'm going to leave it for now. What I need to do then is place the content, the info about the case. So I'm going to do the same thing. Here's the main issue. I'm going to copy. Go back to InDesign, click on the text tool. I'm going to create a text box, and I want it to span half of the poster. Paste. I think I'm going to stick with Times New Roman. And 12 is a little small. This is a poster, not an essay, so I think I'm going to do 16 size font. Let me go back to my research page. I'm going to copy the decision part of it. Copy. Now I still have the text selected. I'm going to create a text box that spans column to column, 3 columns, so half the page. File, paste. I still have the text tool selected. I'm going to, again, do Times New Roman, and we'll make it 16 so that it matches. Now, this is very ugly. That disrupted 2 letters on the last line. If I highlight that last line and a half and then scrunch it down -10, it'll fit on 1 page. So let's take a look. Overall, it's looking okay. I'm not 100% happy. It's very black and white. What I think I'll do is I'll take a rectangle. I'm going to create a background, just a little bit of a subtle background. So I'm going to create this rectangle on top of everything else, and I'm going to fill it with a color. I'll just use bright yellow, just so you can easily see it for now. It's covering everything else up because it's on top of everything. Just like in Microsoft Word, you can put one object on top of another. I'm going to go back to the black arrow tool. Notice this yellow box is still selected. I'm going to right click on it. Under Arrange, I'm going to hit Send to Back. So now it's behind everything. I don't like this color. Hopefully you can see that it's kind of an assault on the eyes. It's a little too bright. So I have all these custom things docked to my right toolbar. If you don't have them, so for example, if you don't have character docked, you can go up to Window, find it, it's under Text, Type in Tables. You can open up character, and then you can dock it. You can drag it here and dock it. So I've done that for effects. So I'm going to click on the yellow box. I'm going to go to Effects, and this is 100% opacity. You can make it much, much more subtle. If you go all the way down, it's so, so subtle. It's just a little bit of color. The other thing you can do is use a gradient tool. The gradient feather tool, let me make the opacity a little bit so you can see it a little bit more. You can play around with dragging it in different directions, just dragging it a tiny bit, dragging it across the whole thing, dragging it diagonally, just to give it a splash of color. The yellow, I think, is a little bit too bright. So I think I'll go to color. Going to switch it to RGB. I'm going to try to get it a little more tan. I think it's like a tan type. And because it's a little bit less intense, I think I can go back to the gradient feather tool and make it a little bit more pronounced. So I'm going for subtle but a little splash of color. You can just keep practicing. Again, the color you can change, see what you like. We'll stick with this blue just for now. So I have the case. I have about the case, but I don't have what this is, so I might put some subheaders. So look here, there's the main issue and the decision. Maybe I'll make those into my subheaders. So I can just create a box, main issue, and I'm going to fit this box here. Going to use the text tool to highlight it. And this font is 16, so we want the header to be bigger than 16. Let's try 18. Let's make it a little bigger. Let's make it 24. So we have main issue, and then we have decision. The easiest way, let's copy that. Let's paste. And then we can just write decision. Click back on the black arrow tool, and then I can adjust this. I think I want the text box to be closer to the picture. And I think I'd like these two boxes to be relatively even. If I go up to the ruler with my black arrow tool selected, I can drag down and create this guide. So now it lines up with main issue, but decision isn't lined up, so I can make decision line up. Well, now I need to shorten this text just a little bit. You notice this plus sign down here. This means there's more text that's not fitting. So what I can do is quickly edit the court-sided. Alright, I think this needs maybe some color. So I'm going to use the text tool to highlight it. I'm going to go to color, RGB. Since I have blue, maybe I'll stick with a blue kind of theme. So we have 0, 8, and 255. So that's what that color is going to be. And I make sure it matches. Just type in 0. Oops. And then it's the exact same color. Still not 100% happy with. What if I made this centered? This is size 23. I'll make this the same. What if I did something like this? What if I made it stand out? Possibly picked a different color. So these are things to think about. Obviously that doesn't stand out that well. I've kind of got a blue theme going on here. Now you could do some cool effects here. If you go to stroke, you can put lines around boxes like that. You can, on the text itself, add a stroke, which is a little more clear if it's a bigger text. But there's things that you can do. You can change the color of the stroke. So I want you to play around with this. Part of the purpose of this project is to play around, to learn InDesign. You want to step back and really look at what works and what doesn't. Obviously I just kind of put that pink text in there. The pink text doesn't quite work. I don't actually mind the stroke around the box. Maybe I could fill the box, now that the box is selected, maybe I could fill the box with a color. Maybe I want to have like an LCHS type theme going on. Maybe I want a gold and a blue. So maybe I'll fill that. Maybe I'll go back to the text tool. I don't really like the stroke function here. So I'll turn it back to 0. Maybe I'll go with kind of an LCHS. So go ahead and play around with it. You want to make sure you have all the important information listed, that it's not lost. It should be clear. Check the rubric that's on your assignment sheet. I need to add a caption that has at the very least the URL where I got the picture. So I'm going to go to the URL, copy it. I'm going to make a text box, paste that URL in it. I'm going to put it at the very bottom outside the margin because it's just a simple URL citation. I wanted to type in Tinker versus Des Moines and make sure there are no typos in there. I could turn my text sideways, for example. If I put my mouse here in the corner until it curves, I can flip it, and I want to look for 90 degrees. Maybe I'll move the text over and have this be a visual that way. So layout is all about playing around with what works and what doesn't. So don't just pick something just to get it done. Make sure you're actually looking through everything. Make sure you're happy with what's happening. This way I actually wouldn't need if I had this on the side. So this might be a little bit more effective, and then I could put the main issue maybe further toward the top. Maybe I could put all the text. and then maybe spread it out a little bit more. Maybe put the date. Maybe I can crop the picture so that it doesn't interfere with this headline, and then center it a little bit more. So play around with it, see what works. Make sure you frequently save because you never know what's going to happen. And when you're done, what you would do is make sure it's saved. You would go to export, save it to somewhere where you can access it. Should be defaulted to PDF. Since you just did one page, you want to save it as pages. Everything else should be default when you hit export. Now, the reason it said that, obviously this poster is not finished. That red plus sign means there's text that I've cut off because I was just messing around with this. Make sure you fix all that. Hit OK. It's going to export it to PDF. When it does that, all of these guidelines are going to disappear. So it'll show you what the actual piece looks like. And I'll shrink it down. This is obviously not finished, but it would give me a good idea. So for example, I couldn't tell in that picture, but this photo has a little bit of white at the top. So I'd have to go back into InDesign and double click on the picture, get that white crop box, and just drag it down a little bit to get that white off. Look back at the PDF, see what else. I'm realizing this column is narrower than this one, so I'd have to decide, do I want that? Do I want them to be even? Since I adjusted the size of the picture, this URL looks awkward, so I'd need to go back here and change that. So once you're finished, export it to PDF, make sure it looks exactly how you want it to look, and then this PDF is what you can turn in. You can email to your teacher or follow other directions for how to turn that in.